All right. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Lot is Cast. And pretty much this is based off, some scriptures dealing with the lot. A lot is something that, you cast to make decisions or leave the decisions in the hands of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai when you're not certain of something. But also there are lots for the different spirits just dealing with Israel, different spirits of Israel being born on the earth for them to play out. And that's more or less, where I'm through the spirit leaning towards is the lot that each individual plays, in this truth and in this life. I want to start off with two precepts and then get into it as to how this whole thing came about, and how the idea for this lesson came about, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. But let's read these two precepts. First is Proverbs 16:33, the lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. So whatever the lot says, is of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And then the next precept, which is in Proverbs, the 18th chapter, the 18th verse, it says, the lot causes contention to cease and parteth between the mighty. And this is why, the apostles cast a lot for the two men that were with them to see which one of them would be put into the position of the 12th apostle, from which Judas Iscariot fell. So the lot causes contention to cease. So today, matter of fact, let's look up this word lot real quick. The word lot is gawaral, lot, pebble used for systematically making decisions. Portion, see? So we're dealing with the portion part of it. Lot, portion, thing assigned by casting lots, recompense, retribution. So the portion is given by the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So whatever position an individual has is given to them of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And just like the prophets have their lot, the false prophets have their lot. Just like the 1/3, on the elect of the Lord have their lot, 2/3 also have their lot to play. Matter of fact, let's go real quick to the book of 1 Peter chapter 2. And there's certain, this is why the scriptures say we have to eat the whole roll, the bitter as well as the sweet, because there's certain parts of the scriptures that are bitter, that are, you don't really want to touch on, you rather not speak on it, because, you don't want to fall in that predicament. But nevertheless, this is all part of the roll that we have to eat, so there's certain things we have to speak on. This is 1 Peter 2:8. It says, and a stone of stumbling dealing with Yahushai, and a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed. So you have certain individuals that are appointed for this. Just like Judas Iscariot, he had no choice in the matter of whether he wanted to do the right thing or the wrong thing, because the Lord put it in his spirit to do what the Lord wanted him to do. Like the scriptures say, man's goings are of the Lord. How can a man then understand his own way? So let's go to the word appointed. At the bottom here, you have the word tifemi. It says to set, put, place. So they're appointed. They're put in that place, in that lot, for a reason. Because the Most High made that decision for that spirit to be in that particular lot. To place or lay, to put down, lay down, to bend down, to establish, ordain. So the Most High ordained for certain individuals to come against Yahushai, to disallow him, to forsake him, and that's just the way it goes. I don't want to sound cliche by saying that's the way the cookie crumbles, but it's the truth. Everything is ordained of Yahweh Bashem and Yahushai, whether good or bad. Whether someone is righteous or someone is wicked. And like I said, these aren't things that we want to necessarily speak on, but these are things that are in the scriptures that we have to bring out, because we have to bring out the whole role. Because we're all hoping to be a part of the elect. We're all hoping to be delivered when this whole thing goes down. So the reason why this lesson title came up through the Spirit was, the name of the lesson being The Lot is Cast. I was reading the book of Acts, the 5th chapter, and there's a few points in here that I want to try to see if we can highlight to show you how you had a council of the Pharisees, the Sadducees, different elders. There was a whole group of them with different sects, S-E-C-T, S-E-C-T-S, that were a part of, those different groups that were a part of the government of Israel, right, back then. And whatever they said pretty much was law, and that was the deal, So you got to remember, this is right shortly after Yahushua leaving, going back to the spirit world, sitting on the right hand of the Most High, and the disciples which were now apostles, getting prepared to get ready to go on the mission of bringing out the gospel. And just like Yahushua met resistance, so did the apostles meet resistance. And Acts the 5th chapter was one of the main or major ones, resistance that came, and it came from the leadership of Israel back then. Okay? So I'm going to skip a little bit through here because, you can read the whole chapter when you get a chance. I want to skip through the Ananias, Sapphira. You brothers that have read it before know the story. And those of you that haven't read it, read it. So let's go to the 12th verse. Because, the thing with Ananias and Sapphira, they sold their possession, held part of it. And what happened was, when they brought the money before Peter, Peter told them pretty much that they were going to die for holding back part of the possession of the money. And they dropped dead, and people saw it and were afraid, to show the power of the Lord, So going on to the 12th verse, it says, and by the hands of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people. Now keep in mind, this is after the great miracle of the impotent man that couldn't walk at the temple called Beautiful, where Peter and John healed the man. And that was a big thing, big to do. And when you read through, you have one time there was 3,000 people that were converted. Then another time was 5,000 people, and then daily there were members added to the ministry that were to be saved, right? It says, and they were all with one accord in Solomon's porch, and of the rest there's no man joined himself to them, but the people magnified them. And believers were the more added to the Lord, multitudes both of men and women. So you had multitudes of Israelites that were coming to the ministry. Some of them were teachers, but a good vast majority of them were that great cloud of witness that we read about in Hebrews the 12th chapter. And so much that they brought forth the sick into the streets and laid them on beds and couches, that at the least the shadow of Peter passing by might overshadow some of them. And what happened? They were healed just by the shadow of Peter touching them. Remember, Yahushua told the disciples, the works that I do, you shall do greater. And they did. The Apostle Paul, there were handkerchiefs taken from him, and that would heal people. Those were greater works than what Yahushua did. It says, there came also a multitude out of the cities round about unto Jerusalem, bringing sick folks, and them which were vexed with unclean spirits, and they were healed every one. So remember, this is magnifying the name of Yahushua even more. and magnifying the doctrine of Yahushua and the apostles even more. So then, and not too long after that, what happened was they were in prison. It says here, imprisonment and release. Then the high priest rose up, and all they that were with him, which is the sect of the Sadducees, and were filled with indignation. Let's see what this word sect means. Because this is what it was. The Pharisees were a sect, like almost like a religion, like a religious group. Sadducees was another religious group. You had the lawyers, another religious group. You had the scribes, another religious group. You had the Essenes, which is another religious group back then. You had the Zealots, so on and so forth. Okay? So here the word is haidesis, act of taking, capture, storming a city, choosing choice, that which is chosen, a body of men, following their own tenets, sect, or party. And this is what we're dealing with here. Then it says of the Sadducees, of the Pharisees, so on and so forth. So that's what it was. These different individuals were different sects back then that had different tenets, and they used the laws of the Most High to try to justify, but they really had more honor towards the tradition of the elders than they did towards the laws of the Most High. And anything that came against that, they persecuted. They had to get rid of it. And their way of getting rid of it was having them put to death. Because they wanted to wipe out anything that put their position in jeopardy. All right. So let's go back. So we looked up the word sect. Let's close this down. It says, and were filled with indignation. Now, when we look up this word indignation, the word indignation there, which was heavy, because we know the word, when the Lord uses the word indignation, is righteous anger. But this indignation, which goes into that also, let's see if they bring it out here. This is the point I want. An envious and contentious rivalry, jealousy. So this indignation wasn't an indignation of righteous anger. It was an indignation of envy. And as we read in the book of, let's see. I know there's one in Matthew 27. Here we go. Matthew 27 and 17. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas or Yahushua, which is called the Anointed? For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. So that's what it was. The indignation here wasn't an indignation because of anything, being zealous of the Lord's word, or because somebody was breaking the word down righteously. It was through envy. All right. Thought I found that a little interesting when I actually read it in the margin, and it said envy, and it made me immediately think of Pontius Pilate and how he perceived, because that devil was pretty astute, how he perceived that those leaders really brought Yahushua to them because they envied him. And just like they envied the apostles, as we're reading here, and laid their hands on the apostles and put them in the common prison. But the angel of the Lord by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth and said, go stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this life. This is heavy. It says, and when they heard that, they entered into the temple early in the morning and taught. But the high priest came, and they that were with him, and called the council together, and all the senate of the children of Israel, and sent to the prison to have them brought. So pretty much, this was a council. They had a senate, which was what? Which was a government. Okay? So now let's go down to the word council. Because I've heard of this one particular word we're about to read, but I never really remember, because it doesn't, this particular word I'm talking about is not written out in the English. And when I mention it, you'll understand what I mean. But let's go here. The word there is Suned Rion. Right? And it says, and any assembly, especially of magistrates, judges, ambassadors, because they were what? The government body, the Senate house of Israel, whether convened to deliberate or pass judgment. Any session or assembly or people deliberating or adjudicating. And that's why you see, well, look, we're going to judge them and this, that, the other. That's why they would bring witnesses, which were most of the time were false witnesses, to condemn certain individuals that they deem not appropriate for their mission. It says the Sanhedrin, and this is the word I'm speaking about. So the word Sanhedrin doesn't appear in the Bible in the English, but the word that does appear is the word council. And whenever you see that word council with an I, Council, that's where you get the Sanhedrin from when it deals with the Pharisees, Sadducees, and them, right? It says the great council at Jerusalem, consisting of the 71 members, viz., scribes, elders, prominent members of the high priestly families, and the high priest, the president of the assembly, which the president of the assembly was called Nasi, all right, which is also a prince, all right, of the assembly. The most important causes were brought before this tribunal, inasmuch as the Roman rulers of Judea had left to it the power of trying such cases. So that's why the wicked Pharisees and Sadducees make this statement. Let's go real quick to, and we'll read that again. St. John 11. And now, see, knowing this, right, it says the most important causes were brought before this tribunal, which was what? The Sanhedrin, inasmuch as the Roman rulers of Judea had left to it the power of trying such cases. To the what? To the Sanhedrin, which were Israelite leaders. So John 11:47, then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council, which we read is going to be the same word, and said, what do we, for this man doeth many miracles, if we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. So now we understand why they said this. Because that Sanhedrin, or that council, or that group of leaders that were set up and given authority by the Romans, as we read here. It says the most important causes were brought before this tribunal, inasmuch as the Roman rulers of Judea had left to it the power of trying such cases, and also pronouncing sentence of death, with the limitation that a capital sentence pronounced by the Sanhedrin was not valid unless it was confirmed by the Roman procurator. So they did not want to lose that privilege. That's what we read that in the book of St. John, the 11th chapter. They did not want to lose the privilege that was bestowed upon them by the Romans to be able to try these things. That's why you had that council, the Sanhedrin. So now you understand why they were so adamant in trying to stop Yahushua and the disciples, which became apostles, and anyone that was teaching the Hamashiachian doctrine back then, or so-called Christian doctrine back then. Okay, totally different from the so-called plantation Christianity you hear out here today. A total different message. All right. So let's go back. Let's read this again. And when they heard that, they entered into... Oh, so before we read on anymore, all right, let's go real quick to... I looked up Sanhedrin in the Wikipedia. The Sanhedrin, Hebrew and Jewish, Palestinian, Aramaic, Sanhedrin, Greek, Synedrion, or Synedrion, sitting together. That the word Sanhedrin literally means sitting together. That's what a council is. A council is a group of men sitting together to make certain decisions, judgments. Hence, assembly or council. See, and this, when you see this word, that's usually what appears in the Greek. Synedrion. And I'm pretty sure if you go to it, it's going to be the same thing. Yep, it's pretty much like the Sanhedrin. All right. So going back, it says, were assemblies of either 23 or 71 elders known as rabbis. That's why Yahushua said, call no man rabbi upon the earth, because they were going around acting like masters. And that's what Yahushua told Nicodemus, art thou a master in Israel, and knowest not thou these things? So why did he tell him that? Because Nicodemus was a part of this council. You see? But Nicodemus was converted to Yahushua. Just like the Apostle Paul was a part of that council. But he was converted to Yahushua. All right? He received forgiveness. So let's go real quick to St. John chapter 3. Here we go. Verse 9, John 3 and 9. Nicodemus answered and said unto him, how can these things be? Yahushua answered and said unto him, art thou a master of Israel, and knowest not these things? So the word master also translates to what? Teacher. In Spanish, maestro, which is a teacher. So you're a master, a teacher, a rabbi in Israel. You don't know these things? All right, so let's go to the word master. You have the word didaskalos, which means a teacher. In the New Testament, one who teaches concerning the things of the Most High and the duties of man. The teacher of the Jewish religion. All right, so pretty much that's it. So that's what a master is, a teacher. Then you have, when Yahushua said, call no man master. I know that's in Matthew, but I don't know. I think it might be Matthew 23. Let's see if I put in no man master. Oh, let me just try master. I did it 62 times, of course. But let me go to Matthew. Okay. I can't find that one particular one. He was actually speaking to his disciples. Let's try this one. This is it right here. Neither, yeah, it was number 23. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Yahushua. This goes back to the same word we just read. And let's see. Right. You got the word rabbi. Rabbi. Which goes to the word rabbi. My great one, my honorable sir, rabbi, a title used by the Jews to address their teachers and also honor them when not addressing them, okay? So that's what we're reading about the Sanhedrin. So as rabbis after the destruction of the Second Temple, who were appointed to sit as a tribunal in every city in the ancient land of Israel. There were two classes of Jewish courts, and what they used to push this was, or are the scriptures that when Moses had the council with Jethro, and Jethro told him to set up captains, over tens, over 50s, over hundreds, I believe even over thousands, if I'm not mistaken, and pretty much told him, to judge among themselves. But he told him to set up men that were worthy, in so many words. Just like when the Apostle Peter and the apostles, they set up the 7 men over the affairs of the tables. They said find men that are of good report, because you just couldn't set up anybody over this. You had to find people that were honest, they were of good report, and that was it. Yeah, that's a good point. if the apostles were teaching in a Greek name during the rule of the Romans, why was there so much pressure to not teach in the name of our Lord? Name isn't Yahushua Hamashiach. Makes no sense. Yeah, so why were they putting so much pressure on them not to teach in that name? And that's a good point. If they were speaking Hebrew, they would have said Jesus. So there were two classes of Jewish courts which were called Sanhedrin. I mean, you brothers could read the rest of this. If you decide, I mean, this is, if you know it, you know it. If you don't, it's not a big deal. But this is where they get the so-called, what's the word I'm looking for? Authority from, going back to the scriptures, in the Hebrew Bible, Exodus 18:21-22, all these scriptures where it says Moses and the Israelites were commanded by the Most High to establish courts of judges who were given full authority over the people of Israel, who were commanded by the Most High through Moses to obey the judgments made by the courts and every Torah-abiding law. They established judges in ancient Israel were the religious leaders of the teachers of the nation of Israel. Then you had, like I said, you had the council that Moses received from Jethro to set up the different captains over the people, to be able to judge the smaller matters. All right, so this is where they get their justification from, and it goes into like different histories. I kind of read through some of it, but the point is that that's what they brought out. Now, the reason why, when I thought about all of this, and when I was reading, I kept thinking about this Mashara Yasha Allah. Mashara Yasha Allah. Mashara means government. And Yasha Allah is Israel. The government is of Israel. When we read about Yahushua, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Power, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And we look up the word government. And when we look up the word government, lo and behold, Mashara. So you got Mashara Yasha Allah, or the government of Israel. And pretty much what that is a whole conglomeration of different individuals from different groups that come from one West, or subgroups that stem out of any one West group that all come together. And it made me think of this council of the Sanhedrin of all these different individuals that will come together, and they're coming together so-called in a unity, but that's not of the Lord. And how do we know this? Because the leader of that whole thing, which is Elder Barak, he is mangling the scriptures. He did a total botch job, as we read the word botch, at the camp, of the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter. I think only the first, like the Apostle Tara said, the first 10 minutes of that video was the only thing that really was broken down properly. And as I watched some of it, I seen the Spirit kind of trying to work with him to bring him back, to when he said that Satan was that was an actual spiritual demon, Satan, but the Spirit told him, why is he red? Then he started explaining it, because Cain, and he was a murderer, and he, blood was nothing to him. So I was like, okay, it seemed like the Spirit is trying to bring him back to what this really is, but then he kept going back, like he was striving against the Spirit. And the Spirit was trying to lead him in the right direction. So these individuals that you see gathering with, with this council, these councils, have to be those Pharisees and Sadducees coming back. Now, not all of the Pharisees and Sadducees were wicked, as some individuals would have you believe, because the Apostle Paul was a Pharisee, Gamaliel was a Pharisee, Nicodemus was a Pharisee, and you had many others that were of those different sects that believed in the Lord. So they weren't all wicked. Then we read in the book of Acts the 15th chapter about those that were of the circumcision that believed. But they wanted to circumcise the Israelite foreigners, but the Israelite foreigners weren't ready for all of that. They had to they had to let them breathe and settle in first before you could impose anything on them. And the Spirit will work with them. The scriptures say, let every man be fully persuaded in their own mind. And eventually, in process of time, once they start getting involved, because they're just waking up. It's just like somebody just waking up out of sleep and the light being shined on them. And, get the hell up, go to work, and then you're still discombobulated. You know, your eyes hasn't even adjusted to the light yet. And you're trying to make them to focus on something that they can't focus on because they haven't even fully woken up yet. You know, half their mind is in the dreamland, you know, and the other half is like in shock of what's going on. You know, so you did have righteous Pharisees. You know, they weren't all wicked. But you did have this council of the Sanhedrin, you know, back then that was trying to impose their will and stop the word of the Lord. You know, and what was the main thing that they were trying to do? Stop the name of Yahushai. And we know you got Elder Rakah, you know, we call him Bubble Eyes, of the GOCC. He totally threw the name of the Lord out. You have Bishop Nate, which we call Nate. You know, he totally casted the name of the Lord out and makes mockery of the name, mind you. And you have others that do not teach in that name, that go back to One West. So they had to be those same leaders, you know, among the Sanhedrin back then, them wicked councils back then that are coming back in their lot in this time. So this is why the lesson is called "The Lot is Cast." Everybody is back in their lot. Yep, ISUPK, they're part of it. You know, because you have wicked leaders among them also. You know. So let's go back to Acts 5:21. It says, and when they heard that, they entered into the temple early in the morning and taught. But the high priest came, and they that were with him, and called the council together, and all the senate of the children of Israel, and sent to the prison to have them brought. Because they didn't realize that the angel had delivered them out of the prison, and the angel told them, look, go and teach. It says, but when the officers came and found him not in the prison, they returned and told, saying, the prison truly found we shut with all safety, and the keeper standing without before the doors. But when we had opened, we found no man within. Now when the high priest and the captain of the temple and the chief priests heard these things, they doubted of whereunto this would grow. Because their whole thing was about stomping it out. Because remember, it said that they had indignation, or they were envious. And the whole thing is trying to shut it down. And they're like wondering, where the hell is this going to go? Because they were doing the same thing to Yahushua. Following them around, sending spies around him, trying to catch him up in his words, being slick with the tongue. Hey, how you doing, master? You know, we believe that you this son, this and that, such and such, the son of the Most High, blah, 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 whoop-de-whoop. You know, what do you think about this? You know, should we pay tribute to Caesar? You know, just trying to throw stuff at him. But Yahushua was very perceptive, very wise. He could read their thoughts. You know, and he already knew, you know, why tempt ye me, man? You know, and that's why when Yahushua come back, he coming to take heads off, man. Because back then he wanted to. You know, the proof of that, oh, no, you can't say that, you know, Christ, Jesus ain't going to do all that. He ain't going to be beating nobody. Shit, he beat the hell out of them people in the temple. What did he tell Pontius Pilate? If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight that I should not be delivered unto you, or something along those lines. So Yahushua is waiting up in the heavens, waiting to get vengeance, man. He coming back for payback, baby. So it says, then came one and told them, saying, behold, the men whom ye put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people. Because Yahushua told Peter what? If you love me, feed my sheep and feed my lambs. Then went the captain with the officers, because they had their own police force. That's another. So you have to picture these things. You can't just read the scriptures and be like, okay, yep, Caiaphas and Annas and this guy and this individual and this captain and you know. You have to picture what's going on. And what's going on is you have these councils. They're trying to trap the men up, you know, the men of the Lord up. You know, they have their own police force. They have their own Senate house. They have their own government. And they have their own customs, you know, that they keep. And they use the law as a guise to make people believe that, oh, these are some righteous men. Oh, wow, you know. It says, and when they had brought them, they set them before the council, Sanhedrin, and the high priest asked them, saying, did not we straightly, and the word straightly here is position of difficulty, command you that you should not teach what? In this name? So that was their main beef. Don't teach in his name. Now I don't know if all of the individuals of Mashiach Yasha Allah, if all those different groups teach the names of the Lord, but I think some of them don't. I think some of them don't call on the names Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. But back then they had a problem with that name. And this is why Yahweh Shai said, in this time, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom, but they that do the will of my Father. And if you're teaching a different doctrine from the truth, it doesn't matter if you know the names of Yahweh and Yahweh Shai and you call on them day in and day out. If you're not doing the will of the Lord and you're not teaching his word properly, then you're none of his. So the Lord got every angle covered, man. It says, and behold, you have filled Jerusalem with your doctrine and intend to bring this man's blood upon us. Well, didn't they say, let his blood be upon them and their children? So what is it? Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey the Most High rather than men. That's right, because their whole premise, the Sanhedrin, all them different groups, their whole premise was about upholding the customs and traditions of the elders in higher regard than the words of the Most High. They would even take the words of these customs and traditions and make null and or try to make null and void the punishment of the Lord's word by saying, well, if you bring a gift and if you curse your father and mother, then that the gift will cover you. Don't worry about it. Because they were greedy. That's why when they came and cast their tithes, they gave of their abundance. They had plenty because they were ripping the people off. But the woman, she came in what? She was poor. She had 2 pence. And what she did was she cast all her living in. So she did it by faith. They did it of abundance. That's why Yahweh Shai said that, because they did it of their abundance. They thinking that they give all this and they fast, once or twice a week, that covers everything. No, that's not it. The Lord said it's better to obey than sacrifice. It says, the power of our fathers raised up Yahweh Shai, whom you slew and hanged on a tree. Him had the Most High exalted with his right hand to be a prince and a savior, for to give repentance to Israel and forgiveness of sins, only to the nation of Israel. Got that vocab? And we are his witnesses of these things. And so is also the Holy Spirit, whom the Most High hath given to them that obey him. See? And it was only given to the ones that obey. Then you have Gamaliel's counsel. Now notice this counsel is spelled different. It's spelled Counsel. This is not the Sanhedrin. This is somebody's advice. The other counsel, Council, that's the Sanhedrin. When they heard that, they were cut to the heart and took counsel to slay them. See? They were offended. They wanted to kill them. And remember, Yahweh said you're going to be brought before governors and leaders. Matter of fact, let's get there real quick. There's one in Matthew 10, but let me get St. John 16 real quick, just to hold that on deck. And let's go from there to, let me leave that just in case. I think that's Matthew 10. Right here. Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to what? To the councils, the Sanhedrin. Because remember, this is why they were able to follow Yahweh Shai wherever he went. Because in every city, you had a group of these individuals that were set up in those cities to judge the matters of the people. Remember, we read that when we read this, this web page on the Sanhedrin. So it says, and they will scourge you in their synagogues. And you shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. Testimony against, not for. Got that vocab? All right. So now let's go to St. John 16:1. These things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended. So Yahushua warned the disciples that these things were going to happen. The same thing that happened to Yahushua was going to happen to them. The servant is not greater than his master. They shall put you out of their synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth the Most High service. So when the Apostle Paul was persecuting and having the so-called Christians, the Hamashiachim, put to death and put in prison, he thought he was doing the will of the Lord. Until Yahushua came and said, why kickest thou against the pricks? Because the Apostle Paul was a part of the elect of this mission, of this doctrine. He just didn't know it yet, because it was unbeknownst to him at the time, until Yahushua came to him and broke it down. All right, so going back to Acts 5, when they heard that, they were cut to the heart and took counsel to slay them. Then stood there up one in the council, a Pharisee, named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law, had in reputation among all the people, and commanded to put the apostles forth a little space, and said unto them, Ye men of Israel, take heed to yourselves what ye intend to do as touching these men. For before these days rose up Theudas, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who were slain, and all as many as joined him were scattered and brought to naught. And this is why the Apostle Paul came back and said not to resist the powers that be, because the Lord set up these powers, because the ultimate power is of the Lord. It says, and after this man rose up Judas of Galilee in the days of taxing, and drew away much people after him. He also perished, and all, even as many as obeyed him, were dispersed. See? So he was given examples of different revolts that were taking place, that were ordained by men. And he was given the account of it and what happened to those men, in order to speak on behalf of the apostles. And now I say unto you, refrain from these men and let them alone, for if this counsel or this work be of men, it will come to naught. Just like these two individuals that he mentioned. And that was just two of many revolts. But if it be of the Most High, you cannot overthrow it. Least happily you be found to fight against the Most High. And this is why they couldn't resist it. Yahushua said, I will give you a spirit and wisdom, that none of your adversaries shall be able to gainsay nor resist. And to him they agreed, and when they had called the apostles and beaten them, they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Yahushua, and let them go. And this is why, this is reminiscent of the councils that were going on at the house of David, which Barak himself, Banyamyan, they were part of it, Nate, and others that, as Apostle Tar mentioned before, if we mentioned their names, you won't know who they are because you haven't seen their faces. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't make sense to mention them, even though sometimes we do, because you don't know who they are. But they were all a part of that council. And one individual, which we call Taza Joke, he jumped up and said, if this was the ancient world, you would get put to death. Will show you that them same spirits were back then doing the same exact things, but they're doing it now. And they were the ones that adorned the sepulchres of the prophets back then, and persecuted and killed the prophets back then. So this whole Mashiach Sha'ala, that ain't nothing more than the Sanhedrin coming back. So that this proves that Elder Barak was a part of that Sanhedrin back then. Now, whether he was one of the righteous or one of the wicked, we'll find out. We pray that he recovers himself from that. But that Revelation 12 breakdown is horrible. And you don't hear any of these other camps speaking about how he said back when Obama was in office that Barack Obama is the Antichrist. He is the anti-type. Barack Obama came and went, and nobody's saying, oh, Barack, you're a false prophet. You said this, that, and the other. But they always keep bringing up the year 2000 thing whenever it comes a great millstone. Show you the hypocrisy. And a lot of those individuals that are down with that Masharaya Shala, they were some of them wicked Pharisees and Sadducees back then. Some of them were righteous, because you had, not all of those men were wicked, but that was a wicked union. That was a wicked council, a wicked Sanhedrin that was set up. You know, and some were caught up into it because they thought that was the right thing to do, but the Spirit had them break away. You know, and we have examples in the scriptures of some that did. It says, and they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for what? For his name. And this is the reason why Yahweh said, blessed is he that is not offended in me, because when we come in the name of Yahweh, we're gonna suffer persecutions. But Yahweh said pretty much, count it all joy. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 4. Share the sufferings of Yahweh. 1 Peter 4:12. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. And why is it happening? Because we're upholding the names of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh and their doctrine. They hate him that rebuketh at the gate. But rejoice in as much as you are partakers of Yahweh's sufferings. Why? Because if we suffer with him, we will be glorified with him. That when his glory shall be revealed, you may be glad also with exceeding joy. See? If ye be reproached for the name of Yahweh, happy are ye, for the Spirit of glory and of the Most High power, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh, resteth upon you. And that's why Yahweh said, if you were of the world will hear his own. It says, on their part he is evil spoken of, but on your part he is glorified, because we glorify Yahweh Bashem Yahweh. And they don't. It says, but let none of you suffer as a murderer, or as a thief, or as an evildoer, or as a busybody in other men's matters. So we don't want to suffer this way. Yet if any man suffer as a Hamashiachim, a so-called Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify the Most High on this behalf, just like the apostle glorified and were happy and praised the Lord for suffering shame for the name of Yahweh. And daily in the temple and in every house they cease not to teach and preach Yahweh HaMashiach. You see, because this counsel is of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh. Like Peter said, we rather obey the Most High rather than men. Okay. Oh wow! I just looked at the 144. It was just 144 watching. All right, so pretty much with that, I think this will be a good spot to end it. The lot is cast. We know that the lot is a decision or a position, that someone is set up in. Just like you have your righteous, you have your wicked. We hope that, we are a part of the righteous. We hope that we are the elect, and, very soon it will be made manifest. So with that, I pray that you brothers have been edified. You sisters also. Until the next time I say shalom.